then we
I
would
think
have
that's
to
a
do
question
it.
that we need to ask.
Then we would have to do it.
Wait, really? If God told you to kill a baby, would you do it?
Oh, so when you say killing babies, it ties into like abortion policy.
Nick Fuentes and Dean Withers have this conversation about Christianity, and guys, let me just tell you, it is brutal. And I am going to be debunking both of them in all of their claims because both of them have a lot of bad claims. Let's get right into it.
Well, I believe that America should have a religious government. We should have a Christian Catholic government. And, we have to face the fact that liberalism has failed. And the best example that liberalism is failing is that we're not having enough kids. The society, the civilization that doesn't have kids will cease to exist and it will lose. And it is losing. Liberalism around the world is receding.
Fair.
And these more ancient, tribal, perennial cultures are thriving. Islam is the fastest growing religion. China is on the rise. Tribalism, racialism, all these things, all these revanchist, historic ideologies are on the rise, and they're all beating back liberalism because liberalism is weak. It is ineffectual. It's causing all kinds of perversity, degeneracy. People are not having kids. It's just sort of like anti-human and inimical to the human body.
I'll say something though. Did he just say that China is on the rise? They have a massive child problem because they put into the fact that only their parents could only have one child or two, and then it was one, and then everyone only wanted to have boys, so that either they would give them up for adoption or abort them. And now they're seeing that they are declining and they're having no kids, and especially they have hardly any girls. They're a dying breed essentially in that sense, because it's not necessarily liberalism, but that's more like communism.
So, in addition to Catholicism and Christianity being true, liberalism is clearly bankrupt. Liberalism is clearly having a hard time. I think we should replace our state religion of liberalism with the state religion of Christianity. And I'm interested to see.
I don't think that we should necessarily have a state religion of Christianity. I don't think we should force anyone to become a Christian. I think that's something that should be personal and everyone should make that decision for themselves. But let's continue.
Where Dean wants to take it, because obviously it's a huge topic, but I think we should have a Catholic country, not a liberal atheist one.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of different ways that a conversation about Christian nationalism can go. I've debated people on Christian nationalism before that will concede even if Christianity's false, right? We should still be, right, a country that upholds Christian nationalism because it promotes better outcomes. But I think there's a couple points there that you made I'd just like to respond to real quick about declining birth rates, immigration. That's crazy. And then about, a couple of the other. So you said that you're a Catholic. I think in the Catholic faith, you'll kind of have a different range on how bad things are. Something can be a mortal sin, a venial sin. But something that I'd say here that is a very absurd conclusion given Christian nationalism is shit like blasphemy. So like blasphemy as defined by the Bible is the worst sin that anyone can commit. Does that mean that people should go to jail for life for blasphemy? Well, I don't know, because we know that people should go to jail for life for murder. And if blasphemy is worse than murder and we're operating under a system in a society with a government that legislates on the basis of the Bible and these foundational beliefs as prescribed by Christianity, are we going to start sending people to jail for blasphemy too? I don't see how you'd be able to respond to that. I don't. And then like a couple other things.
Okay, but just because you have like a Christian nation doesn't mean that there's going to be separate laws for different things. Like you wouldn't send people to jail just because you blaspheme someone. That's a religious thing. So that's why, yeah, I think that just giving people the freedom to worship whatever they want, because you don't want to force anyone to become a Christian. Like I said, you want people to make that decision freely on their own.
We could say here, the Bible promotes very harmful, bad beliefs. 1 Samuel 15:3, God tells Saul and his men to genocide the Amalekite men, women, and girls. I bet if I was to engage in a conversation with this guy specifically about 1 Samuel 15:3, he'll end up saying that sometimes genocide's okay. Leviticus 25 verses 44 through 46. God tells the Israelites that they can own the non-Israelites as human property for life.
Yeah,
I bet if I was having a conversation with this guy about that topic, he'd end up saying that no, slavery hasn't always been wrong, alongside other things, right? So we could talk about how Christianity is false. We could talk about how it doesn't allow us to effectively legislate. We could talk about the absurdities that are already present in the Bible. But one last point that I'd like to bring up is if you're going to make an argument argument on the basis of the efficacy and the outcomes in which it would generate in society, which seemingly you started to there, well, what if we find another religion that generates better outcomes than the one that you hold to? Okay, so if the reason that you want a Christian nation is because it will promote human well-being and happiness, people are going to be having more kids and following these commandments, they'll be doing good, no degeneracy, none of that. Well, what if I told you that the LDS church had even better outcomes than the Catholic church? Would you all of a sudden be in support of an LDS-led state? Probably not. Okay, right? So that's another contradiction on its own.
I wouldn't say that. I would not say an LDS church would produce better outcomes. I would not. And I would never say that genocide is okay, ever. I would never say that. And I would never say that slavery is okay. I would never say that. This is what gets Nick Fuentes so crazy, because he admits to some wild things.
So feel free to kind of pick and choose there, respond to the point that you want, take it away.
Yeah, so you said about birth rates or immigration. Well, here's the problem, okay? One, the people that have liberalism are killing themselves, okay? So the people that invented liberalism, that live in liberal societies, literally and figuratively are killing themselves. They're committing suicide. They're dying.
The guy that you worship
okay, are you
literally
going to interrupt me like 30 seconds into my rebuttal? That's crazy. No confidence in liberalism. They
you're
commit
right.
suicide. They die from desperate despair. They're addicted to drugs, all kinds of things. They're all dying over there, okay? We're dying in America. We're dying in Europe. And by the way, these people come from non-liberal or illiberal societies, and then their birth rate goes down. So even if you wanted to argue, oh, well, like, we could salvage liberalism with an endless supply of immigration from illiberal societies that have kids, when they get here, their birth rate goes down. And these are not liberal people. They come from illiberal places like China or Africa or Latin America. They come here, they assimilate, and within a few generations, the birth rate goes down because liberalism is suicidal. With regard to the question about efficacy and outcomes, I'm not arguing that we should have the religion with the best efficacy. I said liberalism has failed, and we know it's failed because it's committing suicide. So clearly liberalism as a system is not working. And that's why, it's such a radical notion. People think that we would have blasphemy laws or religious laws. They think it's a radical notion. It's unthinkable. The current system must be replaced. It's an imperative. It's not a question of, whether or how or anything like that. It simply must be, because it will cease to exist. And so that's really the crux of the argument. Why it should be Catholicism, it's because Catholicism is true. But the point I'm trying to make is for people that say it's so radical that we would go backwards. I would say we went backwards with liberalism, as evidenced by the fact that it's not even reproducing itself. And that's a huge problem. With regard to the stuff about the Old Testament, I mean, look, the Catholic Church, Christians today are not in favor of genocide or slavery. If you want to get into that, this is just like new atheism 101. Are you an atheist? Are you an atheist or something?
I'm an agnostic, but I wouldn't really use these verses in the Bible to say that your religion is false. I use these verses in the Bible to say that your religion is absurd. To say that your religion is false.
I just wanted to ask you that, and then let me finish the last point. So it's very funny when atheists who have no objective source of morality, it's like, their morality is something like, hey, man, just leave everybody alone. What if I disagree? What if my morality says, well, I want to kill everybody or something? What if the majority of people said our morality says, well, we want to harm and we want to do this and that? An atheist has no God that says, well, so-and-so has the authority to say this is correct. That's a problem. And yet they have a problem with blasphemy laws. It is good to have a God that is a source of authority, that gives us our morality, that is unquestionable. With regard to the Old Testament, if you want to get into the debate about, what's bad, I would start with the question of, how do you know what's bad? You claim that certain things are bad. You don't know where good and bad comes from. And how do we know the good and bad are even real? If we're all material, if we're only atoms and we don't have souls, why does it matter what happens to any of us? I mean, what is justice? Is there such a thing as the conceptual? If there is only matter, where is the conceptual? Can we see it? Can we feel it? Is it somewhere?
You want to respond to those points?
So, well, and I'm making a point here. I'll wrap it up quickly. So for an atheist to point to the Old Testament and say, well, how could a God who does these things be so immoral? I would say to the godless, what is moral and who are we if we're not just stardust?
That is true. You can't fight a moral problem if there is no God. You can't fight morality without God, because if there is no God, there is no morality, and everyone has to admit that. Alex O'Connor can't even come to grips with that. Well, he can't. He says it's a problem. And Christianity is absolutely the furthest thing away from being absurd. If you study its roots and how far it's come and how far it's brought society, we're the reason why there's no honor killings. We're the reason why there's value in your life. Christians from day one have been fighting for life. To say it's absurd is wild.
It's being rearranged. I mean, slavery, these things, these are conceptual. It can only exist with a real philosophical viewpoint, not with this kind of lame, like, Sky Daddy isn't real sort of stuff. So, there's just a lot of assumptions there that kind of need to be interrogated.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what needs to be interrogated is the fact that you asked me, well, what do I do if a group of people likes to murder and kill others? What if God said that?
Then
I think that's the question that we need to ask.
Then we would have to do it.
Wait, really? If God told you to kill a baby, would you do it?
Well, God would never do that because God is good and those things are evil.
Okay, so raping and killing is evil. So when he killed the babies in the Malachi in 1 Samuel 15:3, that was evil?
God is telling us to kill babies right now?
So specifically about killing, in 1 Samuel 15:3, he did command Saul and his men to kill the Amalekite babies.
Babies? He told them to babies?
God will never do that. I know I've heard someone say that God told me to shoot that person or something like that. It was wild. Who's telling you to do that? The devil, Satan, the enemy. The enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But Jesus comes to bring life. He's never, ever going to tell you to do something that's immoral. I don't know, Corpse. Seems to me, though, that Christianity's the one bringing life.
No, to kill babies.
Well, yeah, then if I were one of those guys, I would have done it, but not him.
Okay, so if God commanded...
I would never do that. God would never command you to do that.
You to kill a baby today, would you do it?
Yes.
That's
okay,
crazy.
So why would you kill a baby, but you wouldn't have a baby?
Because that would be cruel or something.
Wait, is killing a baby not cruel?
In the Old Testament, it worked differently.
No, I'm
That's
talking
a
about, you said,
world.
You particularly said that you would kill a baby today if God asked you, but you wouldn't rape a baby if God asked you. So how come you kill a baby today, but not a baby?
Because the context of the Old Testament is that it's a fallen world. And that's the context you're talking about. You said that in the Old Testament,
dude, we're not talking about dude, please answer.
We literally are.
Non-answer.
Well, if we're not talking about, wait. If we're not talking about the Old Testament, what are we talking about?
About the fact that you told me today, if God commanded you to kill a baby, you would do it. And then I followed that up by asking you, if God commanded you to kill a baby, would you do it? And you said
God
no,
wouldn't do
because
that
cruel. Okay, so killing a baby today, you would do if God commanded it, but killing a baby today, you wouldn't do because God wouldn't command it.
Well, first of all,
are you making the implication that killing a baby today isn't evil?
No. What you said is that in the Old Testament...
Okay, so then you wouldn't do that either, right?
Well, hang on. Rewind. Let's rewind because you said in the Bible, God says to babies. Can you just retract that? Because that never happened. No, if you rewind... Yeah, okay. People can rewind the clip. You said killing babies because you got a little ahead of yourself. Because you got a little ahead of yourself.
Nick, I will literally clear this up so easily. Okay. If I said God commanded Saul and his men to babies in 1 Samuel 15:3, I misspoke. In 1 Samuel 15:3, God told his men to kill babies. But you are not answering my question. This is a damning non-answer. Every single person watching the stream can see that you said if God commanded you to kill a baby today, you said you would do it. Can you affirm that?
Can we be serious? Can we be serious for a second?
We are being dead serious. Can you affirm the fact that you said if God told you to kill a baby, you do it?
Can we be serious?
That's crazy. That is sad that he would say that. God will never tell you ever, ever, ever to do it, no matter what you think. Hello, Samuel. God will never, ever tell you to do that, no matter what. You got to go to the scriptures, to the New Testament.
Grow up.
Why won't you answer my question?
Well, because we're talking about the Old Testament, are we not?
Dude, we're talking about today. How many times do I need to say that?
You're talking about the Old Testament. You're citing the Old Testament. You're talking about a specific verse in the Old Testament.
Oh my God, this is crazy.
Look, you can giggle, but can we confirm that we're talking about the Old Testament? Is that correct?
No,
what are we talking about?
Exactly. I'll tell you exactly what we're talking about. We are talking about the fact that I asked you a damning hypothetical question. I asked you
if
not.
God...
It's a cheap, one moment. Do you mind if I have 30 seconds?
Context. No. It's
in because you don't want me to talk because you know that you're losing.
Yeah, because the Old Testament says bad things in it. I know. I'm a new atheist and I just discovered. Here's my answer to your question, if you allow me to answer it. I know you want a cheap gotcha question, but let's add a little context. The Old Testament takes place in a fallen world. We live in a fallen world because we have free will. Okay, God created human beings. Human beings disobeyed God and sinned. Because we disobeyed God and sinned, we have the penalty of death, war, shame, guilt, pain at birth, all these things. In the fallen world, people kill. In the fallen world, people kill, People lie, cheat, steal. Cain kills Abel. In the world, the fallen world before Jesus Christ arrived, it was a world with slavery and warfare and iniquity. It is in this context that God commanded the chosen people to kill certain tribes to establish their survival, to secure a line for the coming of the Messiah. God does not approve of killing because it says in the
Okay, for him to say that God commanded the Israelites to kill in order for their bloodline to survive is not true at all. God doesn't command anyone to kill, but God does judge people. There's a difference. There's judgment on all people. There's judgment on the Israelites. There's judgment on the Canaanites. There's judgment on us. People kill people, and it will never be okay.
10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill. God does not approve of because it says, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, and so on and so forth. So God obviously does not support killing, raping. Oh, would you kill a baby? No. But in the Bible, God prescribes laws and specific actions at the beginning of the world, which was fallen without Christ, without a Savior, in sin, for the survival of the chosen people. So the rules worked a little bit differently in the Old Testament. It doesn't mean that, and of course, taking a life in and of itself, hang on, there's a difference everybody knows between killing and murder. If I go and murder you for no reason, that's immoral. If I kill in self-defense or self-defense of my children, it's a different story. God can
That is kind of true. Someone said I look different in glasses. Bye, Sean. To a God, there isn't no good or evil. He chooses your life. If being the same people who don't believe in God, that be saying God commands other people to do things. Right. Yeah, exactly.
commanding the people of the Old Testament is an extraordinary exception based on the fallen old world. That's one. Two, when Jesus Christ arrives, he fulfills the law and saves people from hell. Before Jesus Christ arrived, nobody could even go to heaven, and it was a world of iniquity. And Jesus Christ changed and created this modern world that we're living in. So now here's the thing. God is the authority. If God commands us to, look, I know it's a complicated issue. You can't fit it into a TikTok where you do the Destiny drive-by and say, Trump's making your grocery prices higher. You know, but it's actually a complicated issue. We're talking about evil, the existence of evil. So does that mean that God is not an authority? Of course not. God is an authority. Would God command us to do those things today? Probably not. But if he...
No, he wouldn't. And okay, someone said, why should I choose Christianity over any other religion? I would say because Christianity is the most reliable over any of the other religions. A lot of them make truth claims. All of them do. And the one that is most viable is Christianity. First of all, we know that Jesus is a historical person. Who do we worship? Jesus. Jesus is God. What did Jesus claim to do? He claimed to die on the cross and rise again in 3 days. He claimed that he would die and rise again in 3 days. All right, what happened when his scared disciples saw Jesus resurrect? Their lives were completely changed. Would they make this up? Would they just make it up because they want to gain fame, pleasure, popularity, money, wealth? No, they actually were killed for this story. So we know they didn't make it up. We know it wasn't a lie because people don't lie to die, okay? If they know something is made up, they wouldn't ever die for it. Yeah, maybe they would get it. They would do it for riches and wealth, but they didn't do that. They all got killed for it. And another thing I would say is people experience Jesus. He died on the cross for his sins. He loves you so much, and you're created to have a relationship with him. And we have so many sources for Jesus, so many credible sources in the Bible and outside of the Bible. It's just undeniable proof.
Did, in a hypothetical scenario, we'd have to trust God if we truly believe in God. Otherwise, you would say something like, we know more than God, or God is not good, or we're better than God, and that negates the concept of a God or good itself. So that's my answer to your, so when you say killing babies, it ties into like abortion policy. It's just like cheap, low IQ, left wing. But anyway, go ahead.
Cool, thank you. So I hear everything that you just said. I will give that a great response. I sure did. But before I give that a response, I wanted to take a brief moment to go back to the question that I was attempting to get you to answer prior. I understand that you just kind of gave me the story of the Old and New Covenant. We had different rules before, the Messiah came back down, created the New Covenant, whatever. I get it. Thank you. Okay? But the question that I asked you was, if God commanded you to kill a baby, would you do it? You said yes. I then asked you, Nick Fuentes, if God commanded you to kill a baby, would you do it? And you should know that's too cruel. If you like to take 15 seconds to kind of clear up that gap, like, does that make the implication that killing a baby
I
isn't
answered
cruel?
the question. I answered the question.
You didn't.
Okay. Is this a debate about Christian nationalism, or is this like a weird new atheist? And by the way, why do you think killing is wrong? Where do you get that information from?
So first of all, I don't think that killing's inherently wrong. I think that murder is wrong. Okay, the unjust.
Okay, so you agree with me then?
Wow. So then, if you don't think killing is wrong, then what's the problem with those verses in the Bible? Because that's under the concept of war. That's very interesting. Genesis 9:6 says, if anyone takes a human life, that person's life will also be taken by human hands. For God made human beings in his image. Wow. What if those people took human lives? I don't know. So guys, I encourage you to go to Jesus today. Know that he loves you. He's longing to have a relationship with you. Guys, I promise you it will be the best decision you could ever make.